Hi, my name is Dan, and in this video I'm going to show you some quick and dirty way to get input from your players into your blueprint. So this is part of a series that I'm doing on the basics of blueprint visual scripting for Unreal. I want to give the caveat that I need to at this point, which is I'm showing you how to do this easy thing. It's quick and dirty, and by dirty I mean it's not long-term safe for big projects. It's not how you should be approaching things, but it is a way of doing some simple testing on things, so it can be quite useful. And anyway, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to make something rotate, and I'm going to do it when I press the E key on my keyboard. So the setup I've got here is I have got a third-person template map. I have got a little blueprint here, which is just a plate that you can walk over, which also has a collision box on it, so we can detect when the player walks on if we want to. And just opening up that blueprint, I have in fact just cleared out the event graph here. There's nothing in here at all. So if you want something that will respond to some input, you can get events for inputs of various kinds, and you can just create an event script. There are a couple of wrinkles though, which are that you need to make sure it's something that actually can deal with input. You know, how many things can have the same input is a question. Anyway, I'm going to right click and I'm going to search for the E key. So I'm just going to type in key E, and as I scroll down, it'll give me keyboard events, and basically it hasn't filtered it down to the E, unfortunately, but I can look through, I can scroll through, there's the D, there's the E. Right, let's do the zooming in thing because this is quite small. Zoom in like that. So when that's pressed, I'm going to do something, and tell you what, I'll start off just by printing a string. Print string hello. So let's see what happens. So zoom out. So I've got this E key. I know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm not telling you. So hopefully when we press play, I'll press the E key and that word hello will come up on the screen. Doesn't matter whether I'm on or off. I'm pressing the E key, nothing's happening. And this is the point where people get frustrated. They go, I should actually have input here. Why is it not doing anything? And the answer is because the blueprint that we're using has not been set up to take input. And you need to do that in order for it to work. So the way to do that is we're going to make sure that gets set up when play begins. So we're going to, let's do the zooming in thing here. We're going to do on begin play. So begin, event begin play. And we're going to do enable inputs, which is the function there. Now, the target of this function is self, so it's going to be the entity that we're using, which is going to have input enabled on it. But it's also asking for a player controller. So we haven't talked about player controllers before. Player controller is another kind of blueprint, and it controls, or it deals with the idea of player input. Now, Unreal is huge and clever in many, many ways. One of the things that it's very clever at is multiplayer gaming and support for that. But when you have anything that becomes versatile, it tends to become more complicated as a result. And so this is the case here as well. So basically, it wants to know what player controller you're going to use. There is, by default, a standard player controller that is created when you start playing the game. And that's the case in the third-person template, so that's fine. But we need to make sure we plug it in, and it's easy enough to get to. We just pull back from here, and then type in player controller, and it's we don't want create local player. We want get player controller, and that asks for a player index. We can leave that at 0 because this is where it supports multiple players is that if you've got more than one player in there, they'll have a different player index. So we know we're just going to have a single player, so we'll use player index 0. So it's enabling input for player input 0, which is our only player that we've got in the game, which is why you have to do the enable input, because you might have different input from different players going to different objects. So you can have several objects responding to the same player input, by the way. So we're going to zoom back out. I'm going to compile, and I'm feeling confident that this is going to make it work. And click there, and I'm going to press the E key, and hey presto, it says hello. So that is doing what we wanted. That E key is responding. What we're going to do, as I said, we're going to make it rotate. I've already put a rotating movement component in this blueprint, which is just a simple component which makes it move. And in here somewhere is the I'll just type in here to find it, activate. So auto activate is normally ticked, and I've unticked it so it doesn't auto activate. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the E key to activate it. So I'm going to get rid of that string, print string, and delete, and off the. So this, you can see that actually this has 2 control pins coming off at the pressed and released. So this will happen when you press the key, this will happen when you release the key. So I'm going to do activate. Actually, I'm going to drag that. Let's zoom out. We need to do that. Drag that rotating movement component into the script so I can deal with it. And I'm going to do activate and pull out of there to activate. I don't need it to reset. That's fine. I'm going to, and then deactivate. Hopefully that'll find that. Yes, part of that. So that should run through. So activate the rotating movement when we press and hold the E key, and then when we let go, it will deactivate. So it should stop rotating. Let's have a go at that. Compile, and here we go. Right, so I'm going to hold the E key, and hey presto, my little platform's rotating. If I stand on it, I'll rotate with it. Right, I want to show you one more thing with input like this, which is that if you have more than one object that's responding to the same key, you can have it, but you might think that that happens automatically, and just the way things are set up, it doesn't quite. So if I just put 3 of those in the world and press play and press the E key, only the last one that I put in goes round. And the way to fix this is really quite simple. So back into my script, I'm going to highlight the E that event, and I'm going to take off the kind of the filter on there. So over here on the right hand side, we've got this box consume input. So what this means is when that input happens, the E key's pressed, it generates the event, the E key, which then triggers this box. But with this ticked, it means once it's got to the end of this script, these pair of scripts, this script, it will not pass that on to be used by any other objects. So if we untick that, then it will pass that E key event on and other objects can get it. So just zoom out again and play, and hopefully this will demonstrate all 3 of them working. There we go. So all I've done is make sure it's not being consumed. One of the reasons why this particular kind of input is not considered safe is because you could put a whole load of things responding to different keys all the way through your game, and you might have things like this that kind of tucked behind that you can't see, and you're pressing E, and things are happening where you don't know where they're meant to be happening. So it can cause unforeseen effects. It's unusual to actually have the control go directly to blueprints in the world. But the other problem with this only responds to an E key, so it'll only work on a computer with an E. If you want to make a game that will work across different platforms, so if you deployed this to an Xbox, for example, there is no key on an Xbox keyboard, so you won't get an E key event, so you won't get what it is happening. So in the next video I'm going to show you a more complicated but better way of doing input, but that's it from me for now.